Petal Festival,
Petal
a
Festival.
storm-based deck.
Yeah, this deck is interesting. It's got 4 Preordain, 4 Ponder, 4 Brainstorm, 4 Reach Through Mist, 4 Peer Through Depths, 4 Merchant Scrolls, 4 Ideas Unbound. This deck is just all draw cards. And then it's got Psychic Puppetry, Petals of Insight, Gigadrouse, and Dampen Thought. So it looks like it has a mill win condition, and then I don't know what Market Festival or Psychic Puppetry do. Would you be so kind, Sean?
Yeah, Market Festival is a card from a recent set. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds 2 mana in any combination of colors to his or her mana pool.
Okay, so he's got 4 Utopia's Sprawl, 4 Fertile Ground, and a 1 Market Festival. So it looks like he's trying to get one or more of his lands to make multiple kinds of mana and then be able to tap and untap them.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know what Gigadrouse does, it's a 1-of here, and it's kind of like an answer to counter spells. It allows you to tap down your opponent's lands or creatures on their end step so that you can go off without them having counter backup. And then, what does Psychic Puppetry do? Then I think we might have some idea what's going on here.
Yeah, Charles Wan, primarily a limited player, excellent limited player, has wide knowledge of all these random cards from obscure sets that only a limited player who drafts way too much would know. But Psychic Puppetry, very similar to Gigadrouse in a way.
Well, I imagine this is actually significantly different. So this card is an arcane spell and has splice onto arcane. So it looks like, if I had to guess, Charles is trying to assemble the combo of Petals of Insight and Psychic Puppetry spliced onto it.
Yeah.
So what you're going to do is Petals of Insight lets you cast it, and then essentially if you don't like it, you can do something and put it back in your hand.
Yeah.
And then with Psychic Puppetry spliced onto it, you can untap one of your lands that produce multiple mana. So imagine if he gets a land that's making 7 mana, then he can just go infinite.
Yeah.
And
Look
then
through your whole deck.
Dampen Thought is another arcane spell with splice that lets you mill your opponent for 3 cards. So assume when he draws his whole deck with Petals of Insight and Psychic Puppetry, then he starts to splice Dampen Thought onto it and get him, as
That's
you say.
quite a mouthful. It's going to be challenging for us, the commentators, to keep track of the game state, but it should be very exciting Magic. Stay tuned. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of the, I think this is going to be a good matchup with Delver. You have a lot of interaction, you have a lot of counter spells, and one of the reasons why High Tide was banned from the first tournament is it felt like Delver was really the only deck that could deal with it, because a lot of the other decks are trying to do, assemble Tron or do things with value, and High Tide just did all this on turn 2. So
Yeah. I love baskets. Deck lists for at least the top 8 will be posted. We'll see if we can get other deck lists as well, but no guarantees yet. Hopefully Charles Wan does well. He ran the table last time with High Tide, so now he's picking another Degenerate combo deck now that he no longer has Cloud of Fairies and High Tide, the namesake card, in his repertoire.
it does look like Charles mulled down to 5.
Okay.
So he has 2 Evolving Wilds. At least he's going to be able to do something.
Yeah.
And then Alex, I think, mulliganed to 6, but is now drawn up to a 7th card.
Okay.
So
It's like 2 Evolving Wilds
I think that's
on
a-
either side.
Mortuary Mire, which should come into play tapped. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And Mortuary Mire has some condition, but it lets you put a creature from your graveyard on top of your library. Mm-hmm. Oh, it has no conditions, just taps. All right, so Charles didn't fetch with his Evolving Wild at the end of turn 1, sort of, I would think, signaling that he's looking to draw more lands.
Yeah. Also possible, he doesn't know what colors he may want yet, but he's playing face down. It's hard to get a good glimpse. But now he's going to go and crack him, so you woke up the giant.
Yeah, and he's got 7 islands and 4 forests, so he's just playing 2 colors, even with the Fertile Grounds and Market Festivals.
Yeah.
All right, so looks like end of Alex's turn. He does fetch out an island and a forest, and then draws Gigadrouse here. Probably not what he's looking for at this stage of the game. but casts Fertile Ground on his forest.
Fertile Ground, one of the enchantments that allows him to make a little bit more mana. That an opt or a sleight of...
I think he Thought Scoured himself.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Anyways, going back to Fertile Ground, it is a rainbow-colored wild growth type effect for a land. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, basically you enchant one of your lands and it makes an additional mana of any color. All right, and Alex is going to gain a life, which doesn't matter at all in this matchup, but he's a 21.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like he's holding Accumulated Knowledge and some removal spells, which also don't matter. And it looks like he has a Gurmag Angler, so I think Alex's game plan right now is get up to Gurmag Angler as fast as possible, because he doesn't have a hand that interacts very much with Charles's strategy of not having any creatures or trying to attack.
Interestingly, Utopia Sprawl, another enchantment. It can also make any color, but you have to choose when it comes into play what color it's going to be making. So you have to commit beforehand. Has to put it on a forest. So do you think you would have preferred to enchant the island with a Fertile Ground instead?
No, I think he's trying to get one of his lands to have the ability to make a ton of mana.
So he can untap it repeatedly with Psychic, Puppetry, or other similar cards.
Right.
And he looks like there was a little bit of battle. Accumulated knowledge from Alex Kindler in a turn gets met by a
Peer Through Depths.
Peer Through Depths.
So you get to look at top 5 cards and pick out an instant or sorcery, I believe. Mm-hmm. Also an arcane spell.
Plenty of arcane spells in this deck.
Yep, and it looks like he took, I think, Compulsive Research, which is one of the best draw spells in Pauper for combo decks. You get to look at 3 cards and at the cost of discarding just a land.
Mm-hmm. You need lands in this deck, the Petal Festival, but you don't need that many lands. You just need one land to make a lot of mana.
Yep, and there's not, there's no Wasteland or Strip Mine. There aren't very many effects that allow you to bounce land permanents. I don't think Boomerang's legal. And it doesn't see play over Snap in general.
Well, it looks like Alex just quickly sped up his clock with a Gurmag Angler and a Delver of Secrets. That's potentially 8 damage a turn with no other creatures on the battlefield.
But he did tap out, so this is going to allow Charles to play a Compulsive Research. And he's going to discard Evolving Wilds. And, yeah, here comes the mana counters.
Yep.
All right.
He's got green mana floating. He's going to cast a Ponder. Lauren Ponder, I guess he agrees with you.
Yep. All right, let's look at some more cantrips there. In his hand, he's got a Peer Through Depths and a couple other cards in hand, so not going to shuffle. He has not played a land this turn, so here's his land drop. And he's going to put one of those in his hand, the other on top. So he liked all, nope, goes to the bottom. All right.
The blue shell in Pauper is absolutely amazing for a combo deck because you've got access to legacy quality cantrips as 4-ofs.
Yeah, but I think it kind of, even though you have sort of an outrageous amount of cantrips, there's not a lot of tutoring with the exception of Merchant Scroll. And the aggro decks in Pauper, because there's no like Terminus or Supreme Verdict, they can just like really go all out and not be too afraid of getting punished. So, things like Goblins or Mono Green Stompy just present a similar clock, even though you're trying to play a combo deck.
Speaking of clock, Alex just added to his clock with Mold Drifter and allowed himself to draw 2 cards for potentially more disruption.
Yeah, and Alex just has no fear. He's just tapping out all over. I guess he doesn't have any counter spells, so that's one reason not to play like you do. Yeah, Splice on Arcane is an underrated mechanic, but it's mostly on cards that just like don't play regular Magic very well.
Yeah.
All right, so Charles, I think, cast another Compulsive Research and is deciding what to discard. He only drew 1 land, and I think he wants to make his land drop, so he's going to discard 2 cards here. Ooh, it's hard to discard that Giga Drowse, because even though Alex has been sort of tapping out every turn, if he draws a counter spell, then Charles is going to really wish he had that Giga Drowse. So he's looking at a hand of another Utopia Sprawl, I think a couple of Merchant Scrolls, but Charles is agonizing over this decision here.
He'll be good tank. He is currently already on a 2-turn clock, regardless of whether or not the Delver Secrets flips.
Yep, it's got 7 damage on the battlefield there. That's the other thing too, is the Giga Drowse could allow you to buy an extra turn. So Charles does decide to discard the island and keep keep both cards. And with the 1 green floating, it's going to make another Utopia Sprawl. So that land is now able to make 4 mana.
Yeah. Do we know what colors he picked?
Let's see. I'm guessing he's just naming all blue. You never really need multiple green in a turn unless you're trying to cast multiple Utopia Sprawls, but that doesn't help you go off. So.
Yeah, I think that's a sound assumption.
All right, and that I think is psychic puppetry.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of looked like Deep Analysis, but I don't think that's in his main deck, and you certainly can't grab it.
No, that's definitely not Deep Analysis. Oh, Reach Through Mist is the 1 mana draw card, splice card. All right, all right. All right, so here's a mental note, and Alex did find a counterspell, so now he's got a 2-turn clock, 1 turn after this, with counterspell backup. And he's got another accumulated knowledge, so could potentially even draw 2 more cards.
Mm-hmm. He's going to crash in for 10 damage. Now, if you're Alex, would you have to just not reveal the counterspell to the Delver since it does not change your clock?
I don't know how much it matters. I think if Charles is able to play around counter magic, I mean, Alex has just a grip full of cards, and Charles really hasn't cast anything that he would want to counter.
Yeah, and Charles is going to have to go off this turn anyway, so
right.
Let's see what he can do.
That is kind of the thing about combo decks and Pauper is even though you get so many cantrips, you don't have access to a ton of cards that must be countered. So
yeah.
A lot of times decks like the Delver list, they just hold on to the counterspell until they can get the card that you actually care about.
Now, is this an end step Giga Drowse?
I think so. So he's going to get all his blue sources. And Giga Drowse, interesting. So Replicate kind of puts a separate copy onto the stack for each time you pay the Replicate cost. So if you cast Counterspell, you only get 1 of the copies. So it's sort of a bizarre mechanic, but it makes it very hard to keep up mana for counters.
So Alex cannot hold up a counterspell. He's going to use the mana that would have been tapped down anyways. Fire off accumulated knowledge. You get any deeper, and Charles is going to try to go off now. Looks like he's got a copy of that Peer Through. Sorry, I'm going to hit some help here.
No, this is Ideas Unbound, which says you
Ideas
draw
Unbound.
3 cards for
That's
2 mana.
arcane, huh?
Yeah, and then at the end of turn, you discard 3 cards. So, if you're planning on winning this turn, it has essentially no downside. If you don't, then it's very sad to discard all those cards.
It's actually a really powerful card when it came out. A lot of Legacy players were trying to figure out, because Legacy was, there was no Modern at the time. They're trying to figure out how to break it, and I think it sees some play in Doomsday piles, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, and when all the Storm decks were running on Pauper, Ideas Unbound was just everywhere because, it just drew you an insane amount of cards, and the Storm decks in Pauper went off on turn 2 just very, very frequently. All right, so we can see Charles kind of going off. He's casting arcane spells, and he's splicing Psychic Puppetry onto that, and so that you can see him revealing it, and what a splice does is you cast the spell, and the spell that you originally cast will resolve with the added effect from the splice spell. But then the splice spell will go back into your hand because you didn't actually cast it, you just added the effect to the first spell.
Did he just play a Market Festival?
Yes, potentially.
Okay, wow. So now he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana with that 1 land alone.
Yeah, so he's just kind of doing it now. He's casting his Reach Through Mists, which is a 1 mana, just draw a card, and then he's splicing onto it. And it looks like he found the Dampened Thoughts too. So as long as he's able to continue to draw cards and generate enough mana, he has all the cards he needs to win.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he's just looking for Petals of Insight
Reach
now.
Through Mist, not particularly good except for the fact that it is an arcane spell.
Right.
And then Dampened Thought is another arcane spell, and
Okay,
that
so
does his kill condition.
So we found the Petals of Insight, and Petals of Insight says you can either draw 3 cards, or if you don't like them, you can put it back in your hand. You can put Petals back in your hand and reorder the top 5. So basically, it has its own return it to its hand, printed on the card.
Yeah, top 3. So when you can manage to go infinite, it allows you to essentially go through your deck. Interestingly, if the number of cards in your library is not divisible by 3, you can actually stack it so that you get the 3 cards you want.
Huh.
Assuming you could cast it infinitely many times.
All right, but Charles kind of explains to Alex that he's going to get milled out with Dampened Thought,
Yeah.
and it's time to go to game 2.
So Charles, one turn before lethal, manages to combo off, taking game 1, and now the players are going to reach for their sideboards.
And that's how you want to play combo decks. You don't get any extra points for going into the game 2 with 10 life instead of 2.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you like from, let's say, Alex for this side? Because looks like he's going to be changing a little bit more in the sideboard.
Yeah, so Alex is going to be bringing out Disfigures and Diabolic Edicts and Agony Warps and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
And he's likely going to be bringing in... He doesn't have a ton right here. He's definitely going to bring in the Dispel and the Duress.
Yeah, Duress
He-
allows him to disrupt Charles' hand, and Dispel allows him to battle on the stack.
Yep.
I'm sure he's in the market for these cards.
The only thing, he might bring in Stormbound Geist for additional threats, or he might bring in Spellbomb just because it's a cheap cantrip.
Yeah, he doesn't have a whole lot to work with here, and there's a lot of dead cards against a combo deck.
It looks like he has 7 removal spells in the main deck, and even cards like Sultai Scavenger are sort of slow. So I would expect that probably just the removal spells will come out. So we'll probably just bring in the Stormbound Geist and the Duress and Dispel.
Yeah, Stormbound Geist at least is a clock. And let's see, what about Charles?
Let's see, from Charles's perspective, I'm not sure what his strategy is. I imagine the deep analysis are kind of in there for when you just want to like power through a bunch of spells and just say like, well, you are going to run out of cards because I'm going to draw a lot.
Yeah, it's better when your opponent doesn't have a good clock because it allows you to get a potential 4-for-1 out of one card spread over a couple turns.
Yep. So I imagine Charles brings in the Dispel just sort of as like another one of just like Gigadrowse that he can fight on the key turn. And he might bring in the Echoing Truth just because bouncing Delve spells is sort of some value, but
Or
I
the
imagine...
Delver Secrets flipped as Insectile Aberration.
Yeah, but I imagine that's more for problem permanents that are like preventing him from going off. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of just anticipating him to bring in the Dispel, potentially the Arcane Denials, because that can kind of let you fight on the key turn and then you don't really
Yeah.
particularly care if they cast.
The drawback isn't particularly bad if it's on your key turn, kind of like Pact of Negation. Also, interestingly, if there's like an early game stack battle involving counterspells from Alex, you could Arcane Denial your own card, get that back to your hand, fizzle his counterspell, and then draw 3 cards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, a lot of times these matchups, playing the blue-black Delver side, playing from Charles' side, Alex's threats are so cheap that you're not really bringing in counterspells to fight his threats. And, we got Mike case down. So you're not really trying to fight him over his creatures, and you're just kind of trying to get to your key turn as fast as possible. So I don't think Charles is going to change too much. Oh, did we lose the battery?
Yeah, we lost the battery. Can anyone hear me?
I think that's mine.
Are we sure there's a battery? Can you ask Cornejo? Okay, great.
All right. Well, we thought we had some technical difficulties, but turns out we don't.
All right, everyone can hear us just fine, right? Terrific. This is excellent because that means we're able to bring you game 2 of this Petal Festival match against Blue Black Delver. Alex is presumably going to take the play.
One would think. All right. It looks like Alex still has a Disfigure in. I guess maybe.
You know what?
He's potentially worried about, Charles having some sort of transformational sideboard, or maybe he has some recursive elements like Archaeomancer.
That's certainly reasonable. It also flips Delver Secrets. Get out of here with your Stormbound, guys.
Well, it doesn't flip Delver when it's in your hand.
Nope.
But I imagine that Alex probably has no idea what Charles is doing. I mean, he saw a good portion of the deck that game, but, you know, Charles is definitely playing one of the 24% other decks.
Yeah, Alex saw a good part of his deck. Charles saw his entire deck. He was just looping through Petal's Insight and shortcutting.
Interesting here, Alex led with Island, keeping Evolving Wilds in his hand, which he doesn't have any one-mana counterspells in his hand, so it kind of signals to me that he's planning on casting an end-step Brainstorm. Not something that I love here, but
Yeah. Well, with so much manipulation, unfortunately no Thought Scours. Those would actually help quite a bit.
yeah. Well, you know what? So he put Wilds on top and he put the Disfigure, so you may be right. It may flip a Delver.
Gotcha.
Touche, Sean.
Where's your strategy now?
It is going to put him like 2 land drops behind from where he could have potentially been.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right.
Hey, 3/2 flyers for 1 mana don't come without another cost.
Yeah, I think that is one of the strengths of the mono blue version over the blue black version. You know, there's not a lot of duels, and there's not very good tempo duels in Pauper. So matchups like this, you pretty much just want the blue spells. I mean, Duress is okay, but it could easily just be Spell Pierce or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, so in the matchups where Disfigure and Diabolic Deed are good, blue black's great, but that's not here.
Regrettably, Omni check. It looks like we don't have any Domain Zoo decks here. We had some on camera last time, I think starting out in the 3-0 bracket, but fortunately, it doesn't look like there are any Zoo decks today.
Yeah, that actually knocked me out of the last tournament. I lost to Domain Zoo. That was rough. I was playing Tron, I got stuck on 1 lands for 4 turns, so he just played Nakatl.
So Tron refers to when
Nakatl.
you have to assemble 3 specific types of lands, right?
Yeah, specifically
And
the
you had
Urza Tron
1,
lands.
So I assume you did not get Tron online?
I did not. Yeah, I think I mulled to 5 and had like a land with a couple of baubles and 1 Urza land and did nothing.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Now Holmes, Petal Festival is a combo deck built around cards like Market Festival, which allow your enchanted lands to tap for more mana, and arcane spells in conjunction with Petals of Insight to loop through your deck. It's a pretty cool name, pretty cool deck.
All right, so Alex brainstormed on his upkeep in order to flip his Delver, and he revealed, I think, Thought Scour to it.
Yeah.
And he's got an untapped black mana and another Evolving Wild, so I wasn't able to count his graveyard, but he's probably close to casting a Gurbank Angler, which he has in hand.
He serves in for 3 right here, dropping Charles to 17. Charles is going to end step a fetch land, get the basic forest, and hopefully this turns on his auras.
Yeah, both players off to a pretty slow start here, although I suppose this is at the same speed as Charles's last turn.
Yeah. Looks like he's holding Utopia Sprawl, Brainstorm, another copy of that Dispel.
Yeah, and I think Charles is just kind of digging for lands right now. He's got a lot of cantrips. There's some lands.
That's a fetch land and an island, right?
Yep,
Right.
and also a Pierce Reach Through Miss, so... It looks like he set it up, so the Reach, and then... Or he's going to draw the Evolving Wilds.
Okay. I like that sequencing. Like, in case something goes wrong, you can just shuffle with the top of your deck.
Yeah, in order to go off, he does need to get enough arcane spells in his hand to actually splice onto, so... even though that card not impactful on the board, it's hard to shuffle it away.
For sure.
All right, so passes back to Alex. Alex has 3 lands in play now, and almost certainly going to be able to put a Gurmag Angler into play this turn, but he's got to be able to balance out how much disruption he wants to hold up.
MTG Nuclear, we'll get back to you at the end of this round to see if we could find any Blue-Green Madness decks. I think we have one, but I need to refer to our cheat sheet.
All right. So it looks like Alex is kind of on the same strategy of last time of like, don't be afraid that Charles is going to go off too soon, but like get some threats on the board as quick as possible. So he puts a Delver and an Angler into play. He's got...
May I remind you that A coward dies 1,000 times before his death. But the valiant die but once.
Is that also Jay-Z?
Oh, that is not Jay-Z. He may have said it. Yeah, things are like a little bit lagging with our computer, but looks like we haven't missed any of this action right here. And right now, it's the second enchantment's going to go hit the forest to go along with the Utopia Sprawl. And that is a market festival, isn't it?
It looks like. So yeah, that forest is able to make 4 mana right now. And Alex doesn't flip his Delver, but that's okay. He still has a 2-turn clock either way. And he's going to pass back, holding up Dispel and Counterspell. So it's looking good.
It's got plenty of pressure on the board. Charles is going to tap for 4 mana. It's going to indicate what mana he's floating. Handy indicators.
So if you're Alex here, what do you think you're fighting over?
Well, he's going to start out with a Peer Through Depths or Reach Through Mist.
Yeah, this is probably not worthy of a counterspell. And countering the spell does not get rid of the Splice card. It still will go back in Charles' hand.
You could counter the Splice spell separately, though, right? It looks like the spell's going to hit the...
No, so you're just adding... I just believe you're adding the effect onto the card.
Ah.
So countering... You can't counter... Okay, all right.
So it looks like 2 Dispels traded and then a Pry from Alex wins the stack.
Wow, I'm surprised that that's the card he decided to fight over. I mean, it just says draw 1 card. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It also has the effect, so he gets to untap the lands. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it looks like Charles is going to scoop this up, knotting the match at 1 game apiece.
All right.
It's pretty sweet. We're going to get a 3rd game between these crazy decks here.
Well, really well done on Alex's part. I mean, I think that was an excellent job of sort of identifying what was happening and what the key interactions were.
Yeah. So both players have Dispels. Do you think anything changes in the sideboard for these 2 decks for Game 3?
Well, I would anticipate that by now Alex has got to feel like the Disfigure is just not good. I would still just prefer to have in a Stormbound Geist over a random removal spell. I know you flip the Delvers less frequently, but you can keep hands that are heavy on counter magic, but you need a threat.
Yeah. Maybe Hydroblast, if Disfigure is good, which I'm not saying it is, Hydroblast also flips Delver, and you can cast it without hurting your creatures to field Delve if that's a very corner case scenario you're interested in. But I don't think that's what he's looking for.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Giving up a card to fuel Delve is probably not good enough.
Nope.
And at the minimum, you're playing 2 mana, so, for 1 more mana, you're casting a Stormbound Geist.
Now, Annul, that actually targets an enchantment or an artifact, right? Or
right.
Spell. So I could see that coming. It's a little bit less narrow than everything else.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's definitely coming in.
Yeah. I'm not sure he necessarily had it in, but now that he's seeing no transformational package, I think he might be in the market for this.
Yeah, so Alex has 5 dead removal spells in his main, or he has 7 dead removal spells in his main, and he has 5 cards that he definitely wants in from his sideboard. So it seems like he kept in the Disfigure. We'll see if he does the same thing again for Game 3, or if he figures like he wants more creatures. So you want this to be... Well, we can see the players shuffling up. You can cut the anticipation with a knife. Charles Wong hoping to have a quick start.
Yeah, we're getting hyped here. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on.
I just got my foam finger flying in the air.
Uh-huh. And to answer your question, OmniCheck, I don't believe we actually have any Madness decks in this event. There's a green-black salvage deck, but I don't think that person's on Madness.
All right, I think Charles is looking at a hand with 5 blue spells and a forest, but he does have Utopia Sprawl, so he's going to keep that. I assume he names blue.
I agree. And likely the case as he's going to play a cantrip off that forest. How do you do that?
Oh, what a master.
Wow.
I'd kind of expect him to just go land here.
Yeah, he in the market for land, certainly.
Yeah, if
And,
he keeps the island on top, it allows him to cast like a brainstorm or something. Oh, and there's the psychic puppetry, so it definitely feels like one of the things about this deck is you're trying to find psychic puppetry as fast as you can because it really like allows you to go off.
How many copies is he running? Did he run his full set?
I believe just 2.
Oh, okay. But he does have Merchant Scroll to grab it, right?
He does.
And
Yeah.
there's one sitting in his hand right now. This card is so powerful, it is actually restricted in Vintage. I wonder why that could be.
Yeah. Charles Wang loves Merchant Scroll. I don't think he's played a Pauper tournament without Merchant Scroll since they started doing them here.
Yeah, he actually split in the finals with some random person.
I believe that was me.
Oh, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, some random person indeed.
Yep. He was playing High Tide. I had Mono Blue Delver, the busted version. So we both were playing decks that essentially got banned.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look at Alex's hand, which I wasn't able to see before, he's got 2 Nile Spell Bombs. So he essentially has said, like, yeah, 2 cantrips better than Disfigure.
Yeah. Cantripping for a colorless and a black. You can spread it across 2 turns. Maybe get something out of the graveyard, but I don't think that's even relevant.
I mean, and it does exactly the same thing as Hydroblast in terms of filling the graveyard, you know?
Yeah.
If he just wants to sack it, put a card there.
I think I actually
can
like
do
the
so.
Sultai Scavenger a little bit more, but
Well, I don't think he took the Sultai Scavenger yet. He had 7 removal spells in the main
okay.
deck.
Oh, it's 7 removal.
Yeah, I
spells.
can't imagine he cut a creature
Wow, okay,
and
yeah,
left
no
in like...
creatures. Yeah, I guess I feel that Stormbound Geist.
Yeah.
So I was sitting here with a full grip, contemplating decisions. There's a lot of different things to consider when you're playing the Storm deck, especially against Delver.
Yeah, you're really trying to like measure out what their clock is, how fast they can kill you. You know, because if you go off too soon, you do have a chance to fizzle. So you're really trying to figure out how many turns do I get to make this happen.
Yeah, Saptox looks like Alex boarded in a Nihil Spellbomb. This is because it at least cycles, and he has 7 removal spells that are completely dead in this matchup. Does not have 7 good cards to bring in from the sideboard.
Yeah, he had 5 counter spells, which were good, or 3 counter spells and 2 duress. And then, other than that, he just needed to get rid of cards that didn't have targets.
Yeah, looks like Charles played another land Enchantment Aura, and then followed up with Evolving Wilds.
All right. So Mortuary Mire, good value card. Doesn't do anything here because there's no creatures in the graveyard.
Yeah, it doesn't work very well with the Delve mechanic, huh? It's just a land, but you gotta keep it.
Yeah, I mean, and the Delve mechanic, you know, there's enough junk and there's no Snapcaster Mage. You know, you get rid of enough stuff, you can still keep Muldrift in the yard pretty easily. Yeah, the blue-black Delver, a lot more value mid-range than the mono blue list we saw in the first round.
Definitely.
All right, here's another Merchant Scroll from Charles. And he might just be looking for like a Giga Drowse. Yeah, okay. So Charles has the Petal in his hand, I saw it earlier, and he also has the Psychic Puppetry in his hand. So all he's looking for now is to be able to get this Market Festival on the Forest, and then keep Alex from disrupting him. Alex is going to Accumulated Knowledge, or AK, and it looks like Charles passed back over to Alex. So Alex only has 2 blue sources, and Charles has the Giga Drowse, so...
That's pretty scary.
Yeah, and Alex led with a Swamp here, I think, so if he chooses to draw with his Spell Bomb, he doesn't have the opportunity to draw a 3rd blue source. Or Dispel. Interestingly, one of the things about Giga Drowse, if you have 2 Dispels, you can use the first Dispel to counter the one targeting your other blue land and still keep 1 blue land untapped. Pretty sweet.
That is pretty sweet. So that, actually on camera, at Pop Rags and Riches 3, Aleko Pores was playing Freed from the combo using Giga Drowse as protection. Semifinals match against Daniel Ho, he had to use Giga Drowse replicating twice with the same targets on some cases to play around potential counterspells. It
Wow.
got pretty messy.
Yeah, I think I played a game in the Swiss against either Charles or somebody else on High Tide where they tapped down my lands, but I had some way to force them to do it main phase, and I was able to cast a Cloud of Fairies and untap them again, which was sweet. All banned now.
That's pretty cool.
All right, so Charles, I think it's on Charles right now, and he didn't tap down Alex on the end of Alex's turn, so he's anticipating he cannot go off this turn. He has 2 Reach Through Miss, a Petal, a Market Festival, another Merchant Scroll, and a Gigadrowse. So all the pieces, but he's 1 or 2 mana short here.
Alex Kibner indicating to Charles, who presumably asked, he has 4 cards in hand. So that gives him some idea what he needs to play around.
Yeah, and Charles right now, this hand is very soft to duress. I'm not sure that he has any way to get back the Petals of Insight if he gets duress, so...
Yeah, it looks like Charles is going to pass the turn. Alex is going to fire off a Spell Bomb on his end step just to cycle. He's going to fire off 2 of them. So as expected, he was just using this as a way to get a non-dead card in his graveyard. And it's going to fire off his end turn Brainstorm just to be a little bit more mana efficient. Finds an island, which is pretty good, and a Dispel. Wow. Was that an island actually? Maybe. No, I
I
guess
think
not.
he's got a couple of AKs in hand, maybe 3. And he definitely has a Gurmag Angler, so...
Upkeep Gigadrowse from Charles. Going to tap down 3 lands.
It might be all 4.
Oh, he tapped. Okay, yep. Maybe the Delver
Let's see,
too.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, let's see. He's blue.
I don't think he cares about the Delver. I think he's trying to get Alex away from deploying another threat this turn.
Yeah. Dispel, taking care of presumably 1 copy, maybe on the. We'll try to get the stack figured out and then report what's going on.
All right, so I'm pretty sure that Charles is tapping down Alex's 4 lands. I think Alex kind of initially responded with Dispel, and then Charles explained to him how the Replicate works.
Yeah.
And then it looks like Alex decided he was committed, so he's saving the 1 black mana so he can deploy Gurmag Angler this turn.
Interesting. Chose to save the black mana. Could be either Duress or, as you said, Gurmag Angler, which is in his hand.
Yeah.
It's like a Dismal Backwater.
Interesting he chose to preserve the swamp instead of... Yeah,
The
because
blue black
he
land.
tapped the duel to cast the Dispel.
Yeah.
I think just sort of initially thinking it'd counter the whole thing, but that meant he didn't have enough cards in his graveyard to cast the Gurmag, and then he also wasn't able to cast the Delver in his hand because he didn't have a blue.
That was a little bit of missequencing or mismanaging the lands in play. Magic is a pretty hard game.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that happens with an Eternal format, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's been years since Replicate was a thing, but...
Yeah, but the thing is, he's probably dead this turn anyways. He didn't really have interaction. Getting a Gurmag Angler or Delver isn't going to change anything if your opponent's going for a upkeep Gigadrowse. Now, I'm surprised he went for an upkeep Gigadrowse instead of end of turn in case Alex had an island, but I guess there's nothing that, other than potentially Dispel, he could even play off 1 island if he had it.
Yeah. I guess potentially, too, he could be worried about the Duress. I mean, that was... A single Duress would have broken up the combo for that turn.
Yeah. Looks like Reach Through Mist got spliced onto
Reach Through Mist got spliced onto Psychic Puppetry.
Psychic Puppetry.
And then...
And with 5 mana, every time he plays that, he taps that forest. That means this entire cycle is going to cost 2 mana,
Yep.
netting him 3 mana by untapping, and allows him to draw a card. And then he's going to cast that Peer Through Depths.
Yep. Yeah, and I think he needs enough raw card draw because I believe he still needs another land drop or at least another Fertile Ground effect in order to go off.
Yeah.
All right, so he's going to discard a land.
Off of Compulsive Research.
Yep.
And then Ideas Abound, also an arcane spell. It's going to continuously cycle. He's going to continuously cycle the Psychic Puppetry on his arcane spells, which he's gone through quite a few. So each time he casts something, the Psychic Puppetry, by untapping that land, nets him 4 mana, minus whatever the cost of playing the original arcane spell was. So he's
Right.
gaining mana at every iteration.
I'm not sure he's actually generating enough right now, though, potentially.
So is that a Fertile Ground or a Market Festival?
So I think he has a Market Festival, Fertile Ground, and a Utopia Sprawl.
Okay. So that is 5 mana per tap.
All right, so he's found a way to use this green mana. We found another Utopia Sprawl. I think that's what he was looking for.
Yeah.
Here's a Brainstorm.
And he's even got the Merchant Scroll, I believe, in hand to shuffle.
Yeah.
Or he can just preordain the cards away. Doesn't even take a look. Scribes them to the bottom. Draws a forest. What a champ.
Yeah, not great there.
Another Ideas Unbound for the turn. It's, splicing Psychic Puppetry once again. It's going through his deck. Alex is very slim to win this game from this point.
Oh, okay, so it looks like Charles brought in a Reclaim. I didn't see that before.
A
But
Reclaim?
that's how he can get around duress if that happens.
Ooh, so that Nihil Spellbomb actually did something.
Well, not this game, but it could have.
What if he wanted to reclaim something that had already gotten exiled?
Well, that's what I meant by could have.
Reclaim one of these. It was the old Noxious Revival without the Phyrexian ability.
I assume Noxious Revival is an uncommon, right?
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
uncommon.
alright.
Otherwise, he'd probably play that instead.
Yeah, doing it for free is pretty good.
Oh, and actually, Noxious Revival allows you to target a card from your opponent's yard too.
Super relevant. Make it so those Delvers don't flip?
Yeah, no, I think that is actually a pretty good use.
All right. Charles is just going off here. Just like doing a lot of stuff.
Maybe he'll deck himself. Alex gotta cross your fingers and play to your outs.
Yep. Choosing to shuffle off this Ponder, but he has several arcane spells left in his hand, so searching for Lotus Petal and potentially Dampen Thought. There it is.
Petals of Insight.
Yeah, sorry. Did I say Lotus Petal?
It looks like he found it. Alex shows a null that he had available, wasn't able to cast it. I'm not sure null would have helped.
No, I don't think that would have been enough.
All right. So that is game 2 in favor of, game 3 in favor of Charles. He's gonna win round 2.
All right.
We're gonna take a quick break and maybe get a winner's interview. Do you want to interview him or should I do so?
Yeah, I'll go get Charles for you.
Okay.
We have about 6 minutes left in the round, so.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, we'll just look at the breakdown of what's available. And here are all the decks that showed up in multiple copies. We got 7 copies of Mono Black Control, 7 guys on Blue Red Cyclops, 5 Blue Delver decks, 4 Mono Green Aggro, a couple Metalcraft decks, some Delver as we saw on camera, a couple Affinity Elves, and a Tortured Existence deck. Yeah, sorry, don't look at this guy.
Did they enjoy my deck?
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. It's worse than high tide.
Here, why don't you go ahead and put that microphone on?
How do I put this on? There's no clip.
That is interesting. All right, so I'm joined here back in the booth with Charles Wan as we scroll through the metagame breakdown. And Chet, any questions for Charles?
Oh, wait. Oops.
Looks like Charles looking for his microphone, so that's part 1 of the questions.
Yeah. It's great.
So, Charles, why don't you tell us about why did you play this interesting Petal Festival deck?
Well, I really wanted to play a combo deck because I feel like a lot of the non-red decks are very mid-rangey, and I wanted something to go over these mid-range decks. Also, I just enjoy playing combo. So
Yeah, you play High Tide to Final Split.
Yeah.
In the first Rags to Riches, and that's not available to you now.
Yeah.
How does this compare with High Tide?
It's a little bit slower, and it's way worse for my opponent because instead of killing them in about 2 or 3 minutes, it takes about 10 minutes to kill my opponent.
Oh, yeah?
So I mean, I enjoy it more because I get to play more Magic. So
Okay. Game 2, your opponent had a timely with a Dispel to break up your combo along with Deprive.
yeah.
Did you feel like you were in trouble that game, or?
No, I definitely felt like I knew if he had 2 counter spells, I was dead.
Okay.
But I actually think I would have won that game, or I was very favored to win if he did not have 2 counter spells.
Yeah. Game 2, you had an upkeep Giga Drowse. You chose to tap all 4 of his lands. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And he tried to fight back with a Dispel. What exactly was the
He
communication?
he thought that the dispelling the Giga Drowse would counter all 4 taps because he didn't know that Replicate creates copies and you have to counter each individual copy.
Okay. Curious. So I'm not as familiar with Pauper as you are. You've done excellently in all these tournaments. Was there any merit to waiting for his end step to use Giga Drowse in case he ripped an island?
I didn't want to get duressed because if you had duress, it was really bad, and there was a non-zero chance that
That makes sense.
he lets it tap, and he just doesn't have another land.
Okay. Yeah, I think, you certainly are very experienced with the deck, played it extremely proficiently. I trust your decisions, but I just want to get some insight into why you made that decision.
Yeah.
We've got a question from the chat. Wanted to know,
It's good and bad matchups.
yeah, good and bad matches for your deck.
I would say the worst matchup is probably Mono Red Goblins.
Mono Red Goblin.
They're extremely fast. They could kill you very quickly. Also, they run 4 Pyroblast, and if you're playing Paper Popper, they also have access to Red Elemental Blast.
Oh, wow.
In the sideboard, I actually have 3 Moments Peace, which is extremely good against them. But you can't Merchant Scroll for a Moments Peace. Is
Oh, yeah,
one of the
it's green.
is
Yep.
green. But if you're able to chain Moments Peace, that's your best chance to beating these Mono Red Goblins at least.
Moments Peace, much better than something like Fog or Constant Mist, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to sack your land drop.
Yeah, sacking your lands is.
Okay.
Is Constant Mist even a common?
Oh, actually, I'm not sure.
I think it might be an uncommon.
Okay, well, you would probably know.
I don't know. It's a great stronghold card.
Yeah. So what about good matchups? What do you want to face today?
But I want to play the slow, dirtily decks that don't play counter spells or duress effects. It's like the deck's extremely hard to play. I wouldn't say it's a good deck, by no means.
But you certainly play it well. And,
Yeah.
I
Like-
wouldn't recommend any
Yeah.
proper player just picking up a deck.
Exactly. Your greatest advantage is a lot of times your opponent doesn't actually know what you're doing. And you actually get a lot of mileage, especially game 1 out of that.
You weren't here for Rags and Riches 3, but I was doing commentary. One of the finalists was playing Freed from the Real combo. No one had no idea what was going on. He tore through the entire Swiss bracket, ended up losing on a rematch because I guess his opponent had a better idea what was going on.
Yeah,
by the time
exactly.
he faced him again.
Yeah.
But that's great. Well, congrats on the 2-0 start.
Yep,
Well,
thank
anything
you.
want to say to the chat?
I hope you guys are enjoying this tournament. So.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll see some more Charles Vaughn on camera, maybe in the elimination rounds.
Yep.
Take care. All right, guys, so I'm going to go step outside, look for Zach, see if we can get another match on camera, although we got like 23 seconds left, so I don't think that's in the cards. And speaking of cards, Card Kingdom sells plenty of singles. Twitch coupon code CKStream, enter that, you get 5% off your order. It's going to be valid for another week and a half or so. So go ahead, please feel free to take advantage of it. It's a great store. I don't actually work here, but I love it. It's been my favorite place to play since it opened up, and I also hope to see some of you guys here in the store sometime. Take care.